to another episode of VersionU TV. This episode is going to be another piece of my trial in the church series. And today I'm super excited about this video because when I joined, well, I haven't joined the church just yet. I'm still, feeling it out. But as I've been going, I think it was like the first or second time I went in person to the service, they talked about doing this event with Cyntoia. For those of you who don't know, look her up, do your research. And if you're, you don't like reading books, you don't like to read the articles, it's a Netflix documentary series out there. Go Google Cyntoia. It'll give you a rundown what happened. I'm not here to give y'all the details. I'm here to give y'all my experience because I had the opportunity to hear her speak at the church that I recently started going to. And it was just an amazing experience. And I just want to share some gems that she shared with us. So yeah, if you're interested, keep watching. Her story was pretty prevalent some years ago. In short, she was in sex trafficking and a guy picked her up and she felt that he was going to kill her. So she shot him and he ended up dying. And it was basically a question of, was it self-defense or was it premeditated? And at the time she was at the age of 16. And they had to first figure out if they were going to try her as an adult or as a minor. And so ultimately she lost that trial. They were going to try her. Basically she was going to go to court for this accusation as an adult. That means whatever the charges that would be on the up and up, it would be adult charges rather than minor charges.
Hope it making sense. I didn't go to school to be a lawyer.
And she sat in the adult facility for 2 years in solitary confinement. I don't think they talked about that in the documentary, but don't quote me. But she did share that with us today, that she had to be in solitary confinement for 2 years until she turned 19, I believe she said. And then she was able to be in regular population. But I mean, she sat in solitary confinement, pretty much for 2 years of her teenage years. And then went on to later find out that all of her appeals didn't go through. They denied them. Like, she couldn't appeal the decision for sentencing her for life in prison, which ultimately was like 51 years. And so at that point she was just like, well, I'm spending like the rest of my life in prison. I think she would be 67 if she got out, if she served the full life sentence. But ultimately, basically, if you guys know, a lot of celebrities started like shedding light on her story. She got a lot of publicity. And she also applied for clemency, but that didn't work out for her either. So it was a lot of publicity. The story got a lot of like talk, and that just wasn't the end of her story. Like, it wasn't going to end at her being sentenced to life in prison. And after all that stuff happened, I mean, the details happened, like I said, due to research, stuff went down and homegirl got out, you know what I'm saying? And now she's living her best life, which I'll talk more about. But she has a book out. She does events where she speaks to women. She's empowering people, telling her story to help others. And I was grateful and had the opportunity to be able to see her in person, meet her. I got a book from her that I got signed, and just be able to hear her story. Because some people may not know, she shared this today, that the Netflix documentary that is out there, it wasn't really like her opportunity to tell her story. That story that's in the Netflix series, I think it's more of like a let's get views. She also only gets like 1% from the Netflix documentary series. And so her book is like her way of being able to tell her real truth. All right, so I'm just going to dive into the whole church event, what happened and the order it happened, what I got out of it, because of course y'all know I took notes. And I hope y'all enjoy watching this video. So to begin with, of course, y'all, I was running late. Like, I knew this event had been coming for like 2 months, and it was at 11 o'clock. I could have been there on time, but I was like only 10 minutes late, but we're not gonna talk about it. Anyway, I guess at the beginning they had like probably like 8 girls. Basically, I guess they memorized, I don't really know for sure, so I don't want to misinform y'all. But basically what I saw was, I believe someone wrote a script or different stories of different women's experiences and how they got into sex trafficking. And then they had people basically come up from all different ages and backgrounds, recite those stories, and they had like the lights dim so you can't really see their faces, to basically get the point across that like sex trafficking happens to all different types of people, all different ages. And yeah, But I walked in on the last girl, and basically her story was that, like, she was super young. They were, like, telling the little girl that they were going to take her to her parents, and they told her, like, yeah, your parents are behind this door, and behind that door was a man. So, excuse me, y'all. So it was just really impactful. I'm sure if you sat there and you were there at the event from the beginning and were able to listen to all of the girls' stories, it was impactful for me, and I only was there for one of the girls' stories. So that was a good, like, opener for the event, to be like, wow, this is crazy, the ways that people are now conducting sex trafficking. Like, it's everywhere. It can happen so easily. It's not just about, you know, your background or who you hang around. It happens to people from all types of backgrounds. So then after that, of course, the First Lady came and spoke, and then they had the person who's going to actually introduce Cyntoia. I wasn't really sure how the event was going to happen. I didn't know if it was going to be like a panel or opening questions, whatever. But she came up there and she talked the entire time, probably for like an hour. And the whole time, like, I was drawn in. I never got bored or anything like that. And it was just great to hear it from her mouth, because when you watch the documentary, it starts, boom, right there. Cyntoia was, you know, she was adopted and she got in sex trafficking, and this is her age. But Cyntoia was able to tell the story from a perspective of reflection. Like, maybe this is why I thought of myself this way, or how this is why I valued myself, or, you know, this is probably, like, she was able to just look back and provide the whys and just make it come full circle, like fill in the whole entire puzzle, if that makes sense. But she talked about how she was adopted by a great family. She was supported. They gave her clothes, food. She lived a great life. When she started going to public school, she just felt like an outcast. Like, she felt like she didn't fit in. She started getting in trouble a lot. And ultimately she got, like, expelled from public school. Like, she had to go to alternative school. She said that she felt more, she didn't feel like an outcast when she went to alternative school. She had got in trouble. She had to go to, like, some type of detention center. And then because she didn't, after she went to the detention center, they wanted to, like, allow her to go back to public school or something like that. But long story short, like I said, y'all gotta do your research on the story. I'm like, I can't retell somebody's life story. But she ended up running away. And so when she ended up running away, she talked about how, you know, she grew up with a different mentality. Like, instead of learning the things that you should learn at 13 years old, she's learning, how do you get a man to look at you? How do you get a man to give you money? How do you please a man? All this type of stuff she's learning at the age of 13. Like, and she's thinking that these are things are normal. She also stated that she didn't realize that she was involved in sex trafficking until she sat down with her attorney, because she didn't see it, which goes to show, like, sex trafficking affects, like, your mental. If you think about anyone that's dealt with something traumatic, sometimes it takes more than just someone telling them that, like, you're going through this, for them to actually realize that they are, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm always going in circles on my YouTube channel, but for the people that get me, and that's all I can do. Drink break. Okay, where was I at? So yes, she's being taught things that a normal 13-year-old isn't taught. So she does that. She's, like, living on the street. She said that she found ways to get money, to have clothes on her back, to have food, to find a place to lay her head. And ultimately she ends up having, like, this boyfriend. And this boyfriend, she feels like he accepts her for her. Like, she's just, you know, probably in love. She wants him to love him back. You know, this is that one person she just feels like, I don't know, she just found something in him. So in that happening, while that's happening, she didn't realize that he was really treating her bad. Like, he was basically, I mean, the way I look at it, like, that was her pimp. He was the one that told her, like, you need to get back out there and make some more money. Like, you need to be doing something. And so she would do things that probably weren't the best for her, but she did things that pleased him because she wanted him happy. She probably wanted him to love her. And that's kind of how she explained it. So one night, it was just one of these nights that she went out there to make more money. Like the boyfriend told her that a guy picked her up, and this is the story. Like I said, y'all can do y'all's research on what happened. But long story short, the guy was like, yeah, we can go to my house and do this. And she felt unsafe, and so she shot him. So you all can see that. Y'all can do all that research, blah, blah, blah. Not blah, 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 but, like, it's better for y'all to get that research from somewhere else. I'm not here to like retell the story. I'm just giving background for what I'm actually going to say later in the video. Ooh, let me turn that upside down. I turned that the right way. So, yeah, that's ultimately when she ends up, you know, going on trial. That's when they have to decide if they're going to charge her as a minor, if they're going to charge her as an adult. And then, you know, they ended up having to take her to trial as an adult. She lost that. She lost all of her appeals. She was in the process for filing for clemency. And this is when it gets really beautiful. Like, this is the part that, like, I have my notes from. So I'm going to just tell y'all the story, and then I'm going to tell my notes. In short, at that point, she said while she was in, mind y'all, she went to church every Sunday. You know, she knew church. She knew who God was. But when she, I guess probably when she got sentenced to life in prison, that's when she just lost hope in God. Like, she just started telling people, like, God, no, like, I don't believe it anymore. And it just so happened that a guy from Texas sent her a letter basically saying, like, God is stronger than any judge. God is stronger than any charge against you. God is stronger than, you know, any decision that has to do with your trial. Like, there's someone out there that can overturn all this. And so she starts sending him letters, and they're talking. God basically told that guy, like, you're gonna make it through this. You know what I'm saying? Like, he reinstilled her faith in her. And I can't tell the story as beautiful as she told it, but what I will say is, like, God is real, because this man, he lived all the way in Tennessee and had a good life, drove a Bentley, and God told him, like, instill some faith in this person. Like, he didn't know this person. He said instill some faith, and that's exactly what he did. And he did that for the 2 years. I think for like 2 years he did it, and they were like sending letters back and forth, to the point where, like, he got her back praying, having faith, you know. He just really, like, spiritually prepared her for the day that she was supposed to be released. God told him the day that she was supposed to be released from prison, and on that day she was released. Like, when I tell y'all she told this story, and it just, you forget how powerful God is when, like, you're constantly shown things of the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how to explain it to y'all, but, like, let's say you have a bad day, and then you're just like, well, I got a bad day. But, like, it sometimes takes people's stories and people's testimonies for you to remember how good God is, or just sitting down and reading the Bible for you to remember how good God is. And yes, even when you do read your Bible, when you read about all the great things that God does, like, you need to hear the things that God has done for other people, like, in this year, in this month, or this week, for you to really, like, take it all in. You know what I'm saying? So it was just really beautiful. And he up and sold his Bentley, sold everything he had. See, and he moved on faith, because God told him that was going to be his wife. Y'all, this man moved, like, off of God's word. Like, that shows how strong his faith was. And the day she was released, they got married in the prison. The prison, like, I'm gonna call it a pastor, I don't know the proper term, married them in the freaking prison, and they're still together. And it's just, you think about all that, like, he just listened to God. Like, that's just something I feel like we don't do that much. Or let me stop saying we. I need to listen to God more. You know what I'm saying? Like, he up and moved on faith, and look at his life now. Like, that's what happens when you obey God. And also, what was I gonna say? Yeah, when I say he took a huge faith, like, his family was telling me, like, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? The world is telling you, what you about to do? Marry this girl, just got out of prison. You know what I'm saying? She went to prison for killing somebody. She might kill you. Like, those are probably all the things that he heard. And people were probably telling her, girl, you need to focus on yourself. You just was in prison for life, and now you want to jump and get married. You need to da-da-da-da. But when God is in the middle of a relationship, or when God is in the middle of your life, period, when God is with you on that journey, it don't matter what nobody else says in your life. If God says it's for you, it's for you, and can't nothing stop it. Like, and I'm probably not even delivering the message in the same way she delivered it, but if y'all ever get the chance to listen to her speak and tell her story, like, if you feel like you're losing faith, if you feel like, no, nothing can happen for me, listen to her speak. Listen to somebody's testimony of how God has worked in other people's lives, and recharge your faith. Like, that's all I'm gonna say. It was just so beautiful. I just think about like all the women that he probably encountered while this woman was in prison, and he probably said to himself, no, I don't want that woman. I don't want that woman. I don't want that woman. God told me the wife that he has for me is going to get out of prison. Like, y'all got to remember, this girl, she was in prison for life. That means she would not have got out until the age of 67. And he listened to God. And when just being able to see that when somebody follows through with what God has told them, when somebody obeys God, seeing what happens when you do that, it was just amazing to me, y'all. Like, literally, it was just amazing to me. And just to be able to have a God-fearing husband, it was just so beautiful for me. And something else I took away from that, I haven't even opened my book and got into my notes just yet. But something else that I took away from that is like, he really just stepped out on faith because, y'all, she probably had to go through a lot of therapy, re-deal with relationships, or even sex within their relationship. Like, he probably had to be there so much, but it probably, I don't know, it just probably didn't even feel like it was so much because he been trusting God this whole way. Like, he probably didn't have worries of, oh my God, I'm about to marry this person who just been in prison for killing somebody, because he had that much faith in God. It was just so beautiful for me. It was just so beautiful. And it's just like, they made a relationship work. And I wouldn't say it was easy for them, but they made a relationship work. And it followed through because they listened to God, because God was in the middle of their relationship. And I look at just things of the world today, and it's like, we make things so hard and they don't have to be. Like, you know what I'm saying? We play the guessing game. Oh, should I? Like, what did God tell you to do? Like, listen to God. And people say, oh, people be saying, oh, God told me. Well, you know what? Let me get into my notes. All right. Because I'm going into my notes now. And these are just like things that she said, no scripture or anything, but these are things that she learned on her journey, having that prayer warrior, aka her future husband, which she didn't know at the time was. But it was just good to take these notes away from her speaking. One thing that stuck out to me that I love that she said this was, the Lord values relationship, not religion. So at the time when she, when the guy sent her letters saying like, God is stronger than any conviction, any judge, XYZ, she wrote him back basically saying like, oh, I don't believe in God anymore. And basically said like, explain to the guy, oh, I know all about religion. Like, I grew up in a church, blah, blah, blah. Because, people tell you, like, oh, I don't believe in God. Then they want to try to tell you about, like, so she let him know, like, oh, I grew up in church. That's like, it's not that. I just have seen the things that have happened to me. That's why I don't, believe in it anymore. And he basically told her, or she learned that the Lord values relationship, not religion. And I just felt like that was so big, because a lot of times, even on social media, when you look at people's spiritual journey or spiritual growth, a lot of times, like, anybody can pinpoint, oh, going to church or praying or this, and that's religion. Like, that's the act of what you do if you say you're a Christian, or this is the act of what you do if you say you're a Catholic, or this is the act of what you do if you say you're a Muslim. Is that a freaking thing, a bug flying around? Yeah, it's like the act of what you do. But when you're in a relationship with God, you're going to do things that people don't even see you do. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you're in a relationship with God, you can be washing dishes and talking to God. You know what I'm saying? Or you can be driving to work and you're in deep prayer. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like that was so big, or people, let's just take somebody that, is known to be a faithful follower of Christ. You look at them wear one thing and you're like, oh, that's not the Christian way. That's not how we do stuff. I'm like, that's because y'all are focused on religion. She could be wearing that, but you don't know how deep her relationship is with God. You know what I'm saying? And that's what ultimately matters. You're not going to get to the gates and God is going to say, oh, yes, you stood up and you clapped your hand every single time in church. And you know what I'm saying? You was always volunteering at church. No, God is going to be like, did you talk to me? Like, you know what I'm saying? The same way people be talking about the birthday parties, like, oh, I invite my friends to birthday parties and nobody showed up. That's what God going to say. God gonna say, oh yeah, you was on the, I'm giving a crazy analogy, but I hope it makes sense to some people. Like, you can't just be the person under God's and Instagram saying happy birthday and then not showing up to his dinner. You know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta be in relationship with God, you can't just do the things that appear that you are in relationship with God. And that's a whole nother dating topic. I'm going off on a tangent, but some of y'all are fascinated with the idea of dating. Ooh, having someone's hand to hold. Ooh, having someone to take cute pictures with. But are you building a relationship with somebody? Like, when that person is down, do they feel that you can support them and vice versa? Like, can you read that person better than his friends? Like, are you in relationship with that person? Are you getting to know that person? But we're not going to talk about relationships. That's not what we're here to talk about. But that was one big point I took away from it. It's just like, God values relationship, not religion. God don't want nobody that's acting like they're in relationship with God. He wants somebody who truly has a relationship with him, who's truly building a relationship with him. That's one point. Another thing, she basically said, hold firm to who God says you are, because you got to think, she told me that after one of her trials, she went back and she seen on the TV one of the prosecutors saying, like, I'm proud of our work. But this was after they said that they would try her as an adult. The prosecutor basically said, like, we did good work today because, like, she's a monster. We need to basically throw her life away. That's basically what the prosecutor was saying. It was like, we need to lock her for the rest of her life. There's no hope with this person. She's a monster. And she could have kept that in her head. She could have went through her life saying, like, you know what, I deserve this. I need to be locked up. But she stayed grounded in who God says she is. And that's just what I need to focus on a lot more. It's so easy for us to define our value with societal. I'm making up words sometimes. But society norms, oh, I don't have this, so I'm not this, or I wish I had this, so I'm this, or society says this, so I'm this. Like, y'all need to start grounding y'all's value. I keep saying y'all, but when I say y'all, I'm talking about myself too. But we, or I, whatever makes you feel comfortable, we got to make sure that we're grounding ourselves and our worth and what God says we are, and just reminding ourselves, and this is what she said, reminding ourselves that we are forgiven, we are chosen, and we are set apart. If you keep that at the forefront of your head going throughout your day, I feel like you would have a total different day. It's so easy to absorb what somebody else says about you or the look that somebody makes at you. But if you go out throughout the day reminding yourself that you are forgiven, you are chosen, you are set apart, you just that much further on your journey with building a relationship with God. If you know who God has called you to be, you're that much in a better relationship with God. If you walk around here and forget who God has chosen you to be, that's like you be in a relationship with somebody and they're telling you, like, you're worth this much, you're worth this much. And then you're like, no, I'm not. Like, be in a relationship with that person. If that's how that person sees yourself, you should see yourself at that or more at the minimum. You know what I'm saying? Okay. She also talked about, she said there's man's report and there's God's report. Man's report in her situation was that she was a monster. Like, you need to be locked up. Like, you need to be locked up until you're 67. When you come out, you don't need to have no life. You don't need to have no children, no grandchildren. You can forget your family. That was man's report. But the thing about God is that he's the one who determines the ultimate decision. There's people that's locked up in prison right now who are living their lives without sin and in relationship with God, who are going to make it into the gates of heaven. It's two different reports, man's reports and God's report. And I said that was deep. That was deep. And in society, we love to judge people for their mistakes and their wrongdoings, and we hold that over their head. But God is a forgiving God, and we should be forgiving other people as well, because God is the one who forgives our sins, and we still sin today. So you just got to remember, it's two reports, God's reports and man's reports. And God's report is the ultimate report, because it's either going to be eternal hell or eternity in heaven in God's presence. And really, I wrote down here in capital letters to just pray. Like, praying is how you build a better relationship with God. It's just one of the ways, but I wrote that down for myself, because I was just like, Dai, you need to pray more. I know sometimes we feel like we don't have nobody to talk to. Man, pray. Pray about it. Tell God what's going on. Tell God how, Lord, help me. I'm so close. This lady keep irking my nerves at work. I'm trying to stay calm, but remind me that I am chosen. I am forgiven. You know what I'm saying? Talk to God. Talk to God. Pray. She also said, like, you cannot define people by their mistakes. I kind of talked about that already. And she also said, like, God can turn any life around. One thing that the guy who was, writing her, which is now her husband, he had came up at the end of the sermon, and he had said something really beautiful. He said, I'm going to say one thing. He said, know that we serve a God who turns things around. They sentenced her to 51 years, but God turned it around and said 15, because she got out after serving 15 years. I was like, if that ain't no testimony, I don't know what is, because God is a God who turns things around, and he literally turned her sentence from 51 years to 15. That's the word. One more thing, they also have a foundation called JFam Foundation. I will link it below. But today I bought this pen. I don't know why it keeps going upside down. I bought this pen. Make sure I give y'all the right details. It's called #The Glitter Project, and all the proceeds went to their foundation where they're empowering and changing people's lives. And they also have an initiative within it that focuses on teen trafficking, exploitation, and rape. Also at the event that the church put on, they had quite a few. They had probably about 30 women from a local women's detention center come. And not only did, what is it called? I don't know, the warden. Yeah, not only did the warden allow them to come to the event and be able to hear her speak, but the warden also allowed them to take her book back. So the church basically paid for all of the girls who came from the detention center to receive her book. And I just thought that was so beautiful, and it was just so good that the warden allowed them to do that, because not all of these wardens out here would, but that's a whole other topic for another day. And I think that's all that I have in my notes. They did have a book signing. I bought her book, and y'all know, if y'all know me, I don't really read, but I read a couple things. Like, I read Relationship Goals from Pastor Mike Todd, and now I'm about to read this book. It's called Free Cyntoia. It's probably on Amazon. I mean, y'all young, y'all know where to buy a book from. I bought this book and this pen. I think the book was like $20, because I think I paid like $29. So it's very affordable, and it's a thick book too, because I mean, it's thick for me because I don't read, and it's small print too. But I'm really excited to read this book. And she also said that while she was in prison, when God told her that she was going to be released, even after they sentenced her to life in prison, she basically vowed to herself and vowed to God that, like, God, this is her last prayer. This is what, the last prayer before the guy started writing her and recharging her faith, was that, God, if you would let me out of here, I will, basically share your story, share your works, share your will with the whole entire world. And that's literally what she's doing now. She's a wife. She's an author. She is a motivational, I wouldn't call it a motivational speaker, but she's a spokesperson. She speaks to people, as she did today at the church event. And she is the CEO and co-founder of the Foundation for Justice, Freedom, and Mercy, which is aka the JFam Foundation. But y'all, I don't know. It stuck for me. And maybe it stuck for y'all. I don't know if she has videos on YouTube where she can share the story the way she shared it at the church event today. But if not, read her book, because she only talked for an hour today. And so I just know that this book is going to be good. And she shares her story in just such a beautiful way. But I hope y'all enjoyed this video. And I got a lot out of it being at the event, and I couldn't help but to not share that same type of impact with other people. So if y'all get anything out of this video, go check out her book. But first, do the research on everything that happened. Get the book and share the book, share your research, and share this video with your friends. So y'all have a good day. Continue to be the best version of yourselves. And yeah, bye.